Mounce, BBG, chapter 25, sentence 7. Very interesting one here because of this. You got pos taken apart in two different places. Here as the obvious dative plural to all, right? To all something, to all, and then of course this could either be masculine or neuter, so to all things or to all men, right? And before we put it in order, let's just kind of take a look, chunk by chunk. So this is either to all men or to all things, right? If you didn't know more, then you have the verb, and then you have this, which could be a subject. I mean, if you look at this as neuter plural and take the nominative, then you say, well, all things, and you're looking at a perfect here. Hopefully you recognize this is coming from ginomai, and then you say all things have become. Well, the problem is you have a first singular verb here. Otherwise, you'd be expecting something like a sigma iota at the end, which is not what you have. So, bottom line is this cannot be the subject, which means that it is the direct object. So, and this one, it is neuter. There's not an option of anything else. So, you're dealing with all things here. That being the case, this has to include the subject because it's first singular and you don't have an ego there anywhere. So it's I have become, and what is I have become all things, right? So then we go back here and say, well, if I know this part is I have become, and that has to be neuter, so it's all things. And again, because you're dealing with substantivals here, you want to tell it's important to tell the reader what kind of gender you're talking about. I become all. Well, all what? So tell the reader your gender that you're dealing with here. So I become all things. And then if you went with neuter here, I have become all things to all things. Well, no. More than likely what he's talking about here is I become all things to all men or all people, if you want to treat it as a generic. But better to treat this as a masculine. And of course, if you know the context more, you see that he's talking about his relationships with other people and whether or not they're under the law and all those other kinds of things. And he says, hey, I've become all things to all those people is the idea there. So better to treat this as a masculine, and especially in the context, and say I have become all things to all, and either men or people, depending on how you want to play with that. But I become all things to all men works just great.